What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Hangover on this Victory Monday. What is going on? The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-1. Everybody should be excited. Shannon White, my man, how excited are you right now that the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-1, kind of looking like back to form?
Well, I'm very excited. I wasn't excited even with being 2-1, as you know, because it's not just about the record; it's about execution. And yesterday was the first time I felt like they executed on both sides of the ball for extended stretches. One complemented the other, and vice versa. They look more like a team. Of course, we said no preseason for a lot of these new guys. We thought it might take a while, which it has, but there was a lot of positives to build on yesterday.
Yes, tremendous amount of positives. I think that the team as a whole finally kind of looked like a team in the whole. I know that the special teams had a blocked a field goal attempt,
extra point. No, you're right. Field goal. It was field goal. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of points that were left on the table there. It could have been a lot better than the 24-21 victory that they had. It still could have been a lot better, but a couple of mistakes at the end, some questionable calls that we're going to get into and so much more. But before we get into all that, let's talk about the injuries. Calvin Austin was taken to the hospital for apparent shoulder injury. I think that had more to do with the facility not having the MRIs and the x-rays and things of that nature. And Jalen Ramsey going down with a hamstring. One, first and foremost, how big are these two injuries to these two players? And two, when do you think Jalen had his injury? Do you think that initial run back that ended up getting called back, is that when he pulled it or tweaked it, or do you think that was a fake and almost a jinx?
It was definitely a jinx. He did that to set up the giddy.
Yeah.
And I was so pissed. I'm like, oh gosh, because I was afraid he was going to come back.
Yeah.
I thought he might have stepped out.
Gotcha.
And I wasn't celebrating yet. I didn't realize that the offensive guy touched it while his leg was out of bounds, making it a dead ball.
Yeah.
But I was like, I realized he was faking, but he kind of jinxed himself.
Yeah.
Which I was really upset about when he did pull his hammy later. But I'm concerned because he's been so valuable. They've leaned on him because he's played some safety, some slot, some outside, and he is so versatile and so skilled that, and Tomlin trusts these guys, him and Slay and JPJ when they get back, that he is being more aggressive and playing some press at times. And Eccles has been very good as well. And even Pierre is a good zone guy. And so they have a much better secondary, but, you got to stay healthy. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I've searched all day, like me and you talked about before the show, trying to find out, is Ramsey, he come back, he tried, and he said he couldn't do it. So is this going to be a 2 weeks and he might only miss one game, or is it going to be extended? And then Calvin Austin comes out last night and says, hey, thanks everybody, but I'm okay. It was a great victory. Don't worry. But if he's going to miss any amount of time, it's concerning.
Well, I guess it's a good time to have the bye. I think a lot of people were kind of concerned about how early the bye was. Those things seem to work out for themselves. Even Aaron Rodgers was mentioning how it'll be nice to get some players back in. Joey Porter Jr. didn't play in this game. Jaylen Warren also missed the game, a surprise miss as well. So you have some players and pieces that are going to be coming back surely after the bye. I believe the Steelers play the Browns at home after the bye week. A team that's not really lighting it up, through the air. And so you may want to caution, especially if you have a guy like Joey Porter Jr. coming back, and if Slay is healthy, and Eccles went down for a little bit as well.
Yeah, cramps.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, it wasn't an injury. Yeah.
And so, you have some players there returning. Deshaun Elliott came back for this game. I thought he played fantastic. I think that made a huge difference in the way the defense was playing. But Calvin Austin, him going down, it's not the biggest, I guess, need right now because, the Steelers don't really use wide receiver 2 very much. And, they got other players that can kind of fill his role to a certain extent. I think that Calvin Austin has probably shown that he's the better between him Scotty Miller and Roman Wilson.
Mhm.
I don't think that he's like leagues. I don't think there's a huge drop off between him and for instance, Scotty Miller. Now, Roman Wilson, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, even after Calvin Austin goes out, he's still not finding himself out there on the field. The only time I think I noticed him was on the hands team at the end there on the onside kick. Where do you feel about how are the Steelers going to replace Calvin Austin if he's gone for a significant amount of time? Let's put it at least 3 games. And what is the answer? I mean, Omar Khan has been kind of it seems like he's not been able to add a wide receiver to throughout these last couple of years. So where do you think it goes from here?
Well, as we was talking about, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. You did, but everybody says that he's done. This year's done. So there's another guy kind of off the board. You got like the 0-3 Saints. Would they be willing to talk about Chris Olave now? You've got the Raiders, which look like they're not going anywhere. Jacoby Myers. There's options if that's what the Steelers and Omar Khan and Tomlin and everybody sits down and decides they want to do, or they want to try to do. It would probably take a 3rd-round pick, but they have multiple thirds. So it is something that conceivably happen. I think Scotty Miller, because, they're not using Austin a lot. I mean, he's not catching 5-6 balls a game. And Scotty Miller can duplicate a lot of what he does. And, we've seen, let's be honest, Caleb Johnson and Roman Wilson have been 2 big disappointments this year so far. Well, Caleb Johnson had to play. Not on kick returns, but he had to play Sunday. And I thought he showed something. I thought he had a couple of good runs in there. I think he had an 8 or 9 yard run and backed it up with maybe a 4 or 5 right after, where he showed a little vision and he hit the hole a little better. But at that point, the offensive line was blocking a little better in the game yesterday, run blocking. So I think they just got the next man up kind of mentality. And I think if Roman Wilson gets an opportunity, he will catch the ball. He just really hasn't had an opportunity. The ball hasn't come his way. And, he's definitely down the pecking order at wide receiver. But, when a guy goes down, especially if you can't pick somebody up from outside the organization, I would trust him and Scotty Miller more than I would, let's say, somebody they just put to the practice squad.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. And as you mentioned, it's not like they were utilizing the wide receiver 2 very often. And so it may not be a pressing need, and I don't, and you're absolutely right. I don't think that the production there that the Steelers are losing with Calvin Austin isn't something that can not be picked up by Scotty Miller. Yeah, and Caleb Johnson was 6 for 22, had a 9-yard long run. To me, when it came to Caleb real quick, it seemed like he was a little bit more patient on his runs, and he wasn't tripping over himself.
Exactly. And that happens. You have to, as you get some in-game experience, you do calm down, and when you're trying to do, your mind gets ahead of your body, and as you say, he was tripping over his own feet. So that was a positive, and I think it helped him get out of Tomlin's doghouse a little.
It probably did. I think he needed to. I think he probably put a little bit of pressure on himself, thinking that he needed to break one. And, after they sat him, he got a chance to sit back and watch and how the offense progresses and how, 4 or 5 yard gain is pretty good. It's better than getting hit in the backfield because you're trying to do too much instead of taking what you can. And so I think that it really did show up there, but it didn't start off great. Sack on the very first play, 3 and out on the very first drive. What was your mindset after that first drive? How concerned were you?
I was very concerned because the very first play, as you said, the sack, miscommunication, poor execution, which has been, more of the same. But the problem was it was Frazier that did it. And I was very concerned. I'm like, because, Minnesota hadn't even dialed up the pressure yet. I mean, I was expected to see it. But the good thing is as I know we'll get to, after that initial first series, the Steelers had a plan on how to handle that massive blitz package from the Vikings. And it really might have turned their offense around, being forced to think outside the box.
Yeah, and I guess I'm glad they did to a certain extent.
Yes.
Think outside the box. They needed to do something, and one of the things, and maybe not so much outside of the box. It's almost sort of like familiar that they did was they brought in an extra tackle, 74 eligible. It was kind of
yeah.
No, it kind of reminds me when Banner was doing that back in 2019.
Yeah.
I was actually at the game against the Miami Dolphins. I believe Dave Schofield was at that game as well, and I was there at that game, and it was with Mason Rudolph. It was the year that Ben's arm went out, and it was 72 was eligible, 70. And by the time that the game was, in the fourth quarter, I think everybody started cheering for it. Every time it came up, and so it kind of sounded like the same thing was happening out there in Ireland. The game was in Ireland. How weird was it for it to have been so early for you?
Very, very, very weird. Interferes with church schedule and everything else. So, but it was. I really enjoyed it even more than I thought it would. When they played in London, maybe because they lost too, I didn't enjoy it at all. But where they changed up, they was going off them quick hitting plays. We'd been begging them, get the ball to Mick. If you got to get it in his hands, however you do it, because the guy is just a big play waiting to happen. There's nobody 6'4", 230 that runs a 4.3 something. I mean, you put that together and you get the ball in his hands, and he's going to make something happen. But you have to do it quick. Because, I mean, he was getting rid of the ball in under 2 seconds, Daniel. I think the first 3 catches by Metcalf were like under 2, and then it was a little over 2 on the one long touchdown.
Yeah.
But they give what it did was it backed off that ultra aggressive Vikings defense, because they're going, okay, you're giving up 120 yards in the first half to Metcalf, and you're behind 14-3. You got to back off.
Yeah.
And that allowed the running game. We talked about, complement each other. And the defense is, when they got ahead this time, the defense just didn't automatically collapse and let them go down and score. So they kept them in a position where they could implement that running game and get that going. And then Gainwell, everybody was like, why are you so excited about Gainwell when they signed him? I said, because he's a quality proven commodity. He is a very good backup who is not just a third down guy, kick returner. He can come in and start for you if you need him to. And I was very concerned with Warren out, because the line hadn't been blocking good at all. But once the Vikings backed off a little bit, the line started to, create some seams and some openings. And Gainwell showed what he could do. I thought he had an excellent game.
I thought the running game was pretty good. They ran in totality as a team 29 for 131, 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Gainwell was 19 of 9 for 99 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 15 yard run, his long. And, this was a good defense that the Steelers were going up against.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Flores, I think it's been said multiple times, even in the chat, that all week, all we heard was how Flores was going to, the defense by Flores was just going to eat up the Steelers offense. They weren't going to be able to move the ball. They weren't going to do anything. And it felt like, especially early on for the first maybe 3 quarters of the game, it felt like the offense was able to do not anything that they wanted, but they were able to move the ball at will almost. And it just kind of seemed like it didn't matter. I think this was the first time that I could say that nameless gray faces probably was a good fit for the game, because it didn't matter who was across from them. It didn't matter who was coaching them. They were moving the ball. They were moving the ball at will, and they were able to run the ball well. And like I said, I think a lot of that had to do with, bringing in an extra tight end. I think Pat Freiermuth saw some decreased snaps. I was talking to a friend of mine who asked me, hey, what do you think about Pat Freiermuth and his lack of playing time? And I was like, it becomes a situation when if his blocking becomes an issue, because, when he's out there and he's forced to block, then those run plays maybe perhaps aren't, working out to their fullest. And then if you end up having him just solely on pass plays, it becomes predictable about what you're going to do. And so it seems like they're limiting his plays to obvious passing downs at this point. And then, I don't think he registered a single target. He was the one that was blocking the guy that had the block on the field goal. It was his responsibility. Are you any concerns about Pat Freiermuth, his usage? He just got a contract. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I didn't think when they did it last year, I didn't think they should have given him the extension. And I believe they were counting on it being the quarterback play that was holding him back, because he had a better year as a rookie with Ben than he's really had since then. And I'm still hoping that with Rodgers and once they start to get an offensive identity, that Freiermuth could be more of an asset. But the problem is, you've got two guys kind of similar in Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth, and neither one of them can block a lick. To save their life. The blocking falls on Washington, because Freiermuth and Jonnu are not good blockers at all. And even at this point in his career, what, year 4, or is it year 3?
Isn't it 5?
No, maybe it's 5. Yeah, because he was with Harris. Yeah. Either you're going to be able to block, but now you're not going to ever be a good blocker. A lot of it is just effort. And I don't know if the concussion issues, and maybe he's not as physical as he would like to be because of that. And maybe the Steelers are fine with that. I don't know. But I've heard people say, well, see, I predicted the Steelers to lose. I wasn't the only one. Yeah. And I said, I will happily be wrong. And I said they would be outcoached on both sides of the ball. What did they do this week? They went the opposite of what they've been doing. So why did it take this long for the coaches to realize, okay, we're going to have to change this up? A little slow, in my opinion, but they did do the quick action like we've been begging. How many catches Darnell Washington have? 3, maybe?
He had 3 receptions on 3 targets.
Yeah.
And, is it me, or is he getting bigger?
Yeah, he's gained some weight back since the season started. Yes. Yeah, he is. I think he enjoys. You like eating. I understand. But he's a big man. Like somebody said, well, they had him listed at 6'7" or 6'8" and 280. I'm like, yeah, he's like Levon Kirkland or Jerome Bettis. They had Jerome Bettis forever at what, 270 or 260. I'll give you a break. Bettis was a big old boy, and Kirkland was 300, and Mount Washington's ever been a 310 to 320, guys. That is a large human being. But what I'm saying is, we've been talking, get the ball to him. These plays that we've been begging for, they finally started to do them. And guess what? It works. It works. Other teams do it all around the NFL. And the Steelers are just a little slow. That's how we do things. It takes us a little longer. But, yeah, I was just really thrilled that not only did they call a better game, but the players on both sides executed the game plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest. Darnell Washington looks bigger than the 2 tackles that the Steelers have. When he's lining up,
I think he is. Yeah.
He lines up next to him like, which one's the tight end? He's a big guy, and it kind of begs the question, right? I mean, the Steelers did. I think it was when they did the 2-point conversion, they threw the ball up to him. They go for it on 4th down and 3 at the goal line. They decide. I know they've been running the ball good. I wanted them to go for it. Tomlin was kind of not really there. He was sending out the kick team, and Rodgers was like pushing him back. And then eventually they end up going for it. I don't like the play call, the run.
No.
My assumption is Tomlin's thinking, all right, we're going to run the ball. We're either going to get a touchdown or we're going to really push him back up and still get a safety or something. But I don't like the play call. I think they could have just thrown it up to Darnell, when that 4th down happened, because I know this is the biggest question everybody has. What were you thinking? Did you want him to kick the field goal at that point, go up by 13? or did you want him to go for it? And if you did, what did you think about the play call?
I'm a very aggressive person. I believe in if I'm aggressive and the other team stops you, but you left it all out there. I mean, when it was 3rd and 1, I'd have did back-to-back tush push.
Yeah.
Like they did earlier. And if they stopped them both and you end up losing the game, I'd say, hey, they earned it. They were better than me. But I don't like, he's for a man who doesn't live in his fears, he does this all the time. And that ultra conservative, I told you I can't stand that. And it could have come back to bite him. At the least, you got the best field goal kicker in the NFL. As long as the people block for him when he's kicking, I believe he will make it. And if you go up by 13, it takes 2 touchdowns to beat you. Now, if you don't make it, like what happened, and they go down and score, then all they got to do nowadays is get within 60, 65 yards. These kickers can make it. So you can conceivably tie a game you should have won handily. So I would have either went for the field goal there or I would have went for another tush push. But I didn't like the 3rd down play. And that set up the 4th down play, and I didn't like it either. So I thought it was ultra conservative.
I did too. I was super disappointed about it. I was like, at first I was like, come on, Tomlin, go for it, go for it, go for it. And I just felt like it was a very difficult play to achieve. Down at the goal line, I know they were running the ball great, but down at the goal line, the field is shorter. The defensive players, the safeties, everybody else is up closer to the line of scrimmage. You're not really close enough where they're anticipating, that you're going to probably run the ball. And I think that's why you end up running like a draw or a run play like they did. But I mean, I think you're just too close to the goal line, and it's just too compact there that those NFL players were going to be able to react. And I mean, he got 3 yards, I think, out of the 4 that he needed. And it's just I didn't like the play call. I thought he probably should have thrown it up to Darnell and let him jump up and box somebody out there. Let him shack it, just jump up and grab it. That's all he has to do. And or like you mentioned, the tush push from like the 3 or 4 yard line. I'm not sure if that would have been the answer at that point either. But yeah, I didn't like that one. The next one that everybody wants to talk about is the 4th down. Now that one, I wouldn't have mind a tush push right there. I think even the announcer was like going crazy. He's like, they need to go for it. They need to go for it right here. I was okay with the punt to, ish. I don't like the fact that Carlos Waitman just blasted it out of the end zone, but I was okay with the punt ish, but I would have preferred them have gone for that in that scenario. Where were you on the 4th down?
Yeah, I just don't like. I just didn't like the call at all.
Yeah,
I think they've got so many weapons. You got Metcalf, which is a matchup nightmare. As you say, Darnell Washington. You got other. We just don't see the creativity in the game plans that you see in other situations. I mean, I was watching the Philly game, and they run 3 variations of a tush push, whereas, instead of doing the tush push, they keep the ball and they pitch it out, and the guy walks into the end zone. There's so many things you could do because people are selling out trying to stop that play. So once you master it and execute it, then you can build off of it. And the Phillies doing that, and the Steelers are just way behind on that kind of stuff. But I just hated that call. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I was with you on it. I was with you. Before we transition, I want to get your last thoughts on the offensive side. Aaron Rodgers ran for a 1st down. Now he fumbled. Broderick Jones ain't able to get it, but he showed the wheels there, a little bit vintage wheels, but he showed some wheels. Yeah, and he was able to get out of there. He had a little celebration at the end. Man, I don't know. I think it's fun watching Aaron Rodgers play. What was it for you? How was that moment when he did that? When he ran and he got the 1st down on the ground?
He's having fun. It's one thing when it's so many times I think towards the end, Ben had the expectations of he felt like he had to carry things, and he was younger then than Rodgers is now. But Ben just seemed like he was laboring, he was tired. He needed some help, and now Rodgers isn't asked to carry as much as Ben. He's got more talent around him right now than Ben had his last year. And I think Rodgers knows, like what I said, I wanted to see him. Can he be a game manager? Check him out of bad plays, check him into good plays, help set up protections, just the little things. And then can he accurately hit guys, in stride where they can make the big plays like he hit Metcalf? That was a perfect throw. And, we see what happened. So his accuracy and his arm strength still being there, and his abilities above the shoulders, he still has. So if the line could just be average and give him an average line and average protection, I think that we can see the offense continue to blossom and to bloom. I was just really thrilled that he's bought in. You could tell he's very committed to seeing this Steelers team be successful and helping the young guys. I mean, listen, he gets in guys' face. I watch him, but sometimes you need that. Sometimes, they need somebody they respect besides the head coach who don't get in their face enough. Rodgers, I like putting him in the doghouse. Rodgers gets on to him, and a lot of times we see him do something better in that same game.
Yeah, no, you're right. And to me, Rodgers didn't have the bad throw in this game. There wasn't a throw that went right through the hands of a defender or right at a defender or any of those things, And so I feel like there's even progression with the old guy there. I see him progressing with this offense, him learning this offense. Him and Arthur Smith are learning together as well, and I think the offense is moving in the right direction. I think, this last game was their best performance, all around performance.
Oh,
we went to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk more
about.
We
got a super chat too.
Oh, yeah. We got a super chat to get to when we get right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few words from our sponsors. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Steelers Hangover. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Shannon. And before we get back into conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, SteelCurtainNetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Go check it out when you're done listening to us here. If you're watching this on the YouTube or catching us live, and you only watch us on YouTube, you're missing like half of the content. We have a whole audio-only content that's out there on the website, also wherever you find your audio podcast, and that would include mine, State of the Steelers, which airs out on Saturdays. Go catch the one I just did. I think I was a little bit more on point on this one and to a certain extent than I have been. I've been off all year. Everything I've been thinking that's going to happen has kind of been the opposite, and so I think I'm getting better. I think I'm getting an understanding of this team. So with that being said, Claude Bishop brings in the start of the second half of the show with a $2 super chat asking, would you trade for Chris Olave for Highsmith? Now I'm going to ask you that first, and then I'll answer the question. What are your thoughts there, Shannon White?
I like our depth at edge. I really don't want to lose that. It's the edge guys are so important to this defense. Being down to 3, because there isn't a fifth option right now, in my opinion. I mean, you can move Peyton Wilson. He can play a little there. Harrison can play a little there. But if I was going to – I don't know what all New Orleans needs right now. I'm not that familiar with their team. If they were looking for a tight end, I would offer Muth and see if you could make a trade that way. But it might just be that you have to give up a third to get, Chris Olave. I would rather do that than trying to include a player per se. You know, but yeah, I mean, there's other options like we talked about earlier. I mentioned him. I mentioned Jacoby Myers. But there's somebody that's the lowest, one of the lowest drop pass rates in NFL history. You don't really think about it because I always think of him, Jacoby Myers, as a number 2, but he's incredibly consistent. He's the guy that's every year gets 800 to 1,000 yards. I think he just come off a 1,000-yard season, and he pretty much catches everything. So that's something to have around, So, yeah, I don't know. There's so many injuries right now at receiver, obviously, including tonight, that the market's thin and there's teams wanting receivers. So,
yeah, no, that's definitely true. For me, I think that I would like to get Chris Olave. I'm not sure if his usage will be there. I mean, you gotta trade off the usage, right? So when Alex Highsmith is healthy, how much usage and how much how much usage is going to be out there? How much action does he get? Now, Chris Olave being wide receiver 2 here because DK Metcalf would be wide receiver 1. How much usage are they going to get out of him? And I think it would probably be something similar to the same amount of targets that Calvin Austin was getting. Maybe perhaps you take away targets from Jonnu Smith. Pat Freiermuth is already at an all-time low. Darnell Washington is as usual as far as the targets that he's been getting. Some games he gets some games he gets a couple. Sometimes he doesn't get any. And so, to me, I think that you would be giving up more usage out of a player in Alex Highsmith for a guy like Olave or for the position of wide receiver 2. So for that, I probably wouldn't be down with that. Would I move off of Alex Highsmith if the price was right? If somebody gave up something, really nice, maybe.
It has to be substantial, yes.
Yeah, it definitely would. Claude comes back with another controversial question. Would you bring back Diontae Johnson? I'm going to go ahead and answer that one first. I think you've already got rid of a lot of the headaches. I don't think you want to go backwards and retouch
go
the
backwards.
hot stove.
Go backwards. That's what he's good at. Yes.
What do you think? Would you go back with Diontae Johnson? He's out there right now.
Well, a question and a conversation that gets me very heated. I'll just say HE double hockey sticks. No. I wanted him gone so badly, and I've been very happy with him elsewhere and George Pickens. I do not want to entertain that thought ever again. He goes backwards better than he goes forwards. He has played himself out of the NFL, and I have no interest in ever seeing him in the black and gold again.
Yeah, I wouldn't bring him back either. Like I said, I think there was a headache there. There was a reason why they've moved on from him. There's a reason why he's been traded and has seen so many teams in the short amount of time since he's left the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Released.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why he's not on a team right now. And so, if there isn't a guy that's at least on somebody's practice squad, that they probably aren't worthy of the number 2 position on your team. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so that's just kind of where I'm at on that. I'd rather entertain the possibility of trading for somebody else. I know they brought in another guy here recently on the practice squad, but I'm not too familiar with anything that he's done. So it'll be interesting to see what Khan does. I think that if he ends up not doing much, because I mean this would be the time to do it, right? Throughout the bye week, get somebody a playbook, get him kind of acclimated to the team, so that way the moving train isn't too daunting, so to speak. So you would hope to do it. If you're going to do it now. So, I would assume if we don't hear anything in the next few days, it probably ain't going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, it probably means good news for Calvin Austin, in my opinion.
Yeah, not being a long, they haven't said anything about putting him on the IR yet, let's say. So hopefully he doesn't have to. He missed a mandatory 4 weeks. So I'd like to have another receiver. I'd like to have somebody that you could build with. A lot of times people miss what I say. I was saying all offseason, Romeo Dobbs. Before the preseason, before anything, because, the Packers were deep at receiver. Before Christian Watson got hurt, before Reed went out, their other really good receiver, they got, other guys too. Romeo Doubs was considered a headache, blah, blah, blah. And, I was like, that's the guy. That's the guy. Well, now guess what? With the other injuries, now Romeo Doubs is looking like Jordan Love's favorite target in Green Bay. And he just had 3 touchdowns Sunday night. Yeah. So, his price just went up, or he's not going anywhere. But, you see these guys, and I pointed out, and then, people forget, yeah, I was right. That, there was a lot of potential there. And there's a guy who's young and could have grown in this offense with Metcalf. He would have been a really good complementary piece with Metcalf. You don't want 2 guys just like. You want one guy's more of the route runner and more of the cerebral, and then you got the freak in Metcalf, and he can stretch the field. But now, again, the market is, it's hot. People are needing wide receivers, but it's thin. There's not a lot out there.
Yeah, no, there isn't. Claude Bishop asked, will they trade for a wide receiver during the bye week? And I kind of addressed that by saying that I think that if they were to do it right now would be the time to do it. I don't know if they are, I will say that Aaron Rodgers was like trying to pull and contact every wide receiver he's ever played with, during the offseason and while he was, after he signed with the Steelers. So, is there that possibility? Maybe that they're still looking for a guy. I just think that if Calvin Austin ends up not being a very serious injury, given the bye week that's coming up, and the Browns being your next opponent, I believe, I think they may hold off on it in the end. What would you say? Is it more likely or not that they trade for a wide receiver?
Well, based on what we've seen over the last 2 years, I'm going to say not likely to happen.
Me too.
The Steelers, I don't think Khan's willing to overpay. I mean, the Packers went all in, let's say, on Micah Parsons. And they overpaid, I'll be honest. I mean, he didn't get just a little bit more than TJ Watt. He got a lot more. He set the market. He reset the market.
Yeah.
But they want him to be happy, and they're going all in to try to be a championship team. I admire the commitment. But what I'm saying is the Steelers realize that even if they bring in somebody, there's somebody they can bring in that makes them an instant Super Bowl contender. There's guys that could grow in that position as a really strong wide receiver too, maybe even be a wide receiver 1A to Metcalf's wide receiver 1. But they're not going to overpay because they still have to find a quarterback in the future and maybe a left tackle. We don't know after this year. But so I just don't think Khan is that desperate. So I want to say no. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say less likely than I would say less than 50% chance that they trade out for a wide receiver. I'm probably thinking somewhere around the 30s. I think they're going to make some phone calls. They're going to pick up the phone. If teams are calling in saying, "Hey, we saw your Austin go down. We have a player if you're interested." I think they'll pick up the phone on those type of things. But I'm not necessarily certain anything's going to move the needle right away. But
we got one of our loyal community, Big Pun, man, he's really going for it tonight. Yeah. Big Pun always has some creative ideas. He's talking about how great Diontae Johnson was or is, and because we strongly disagree. He's probably said bring back Antonio Brown at some point.
I did see somebody say that.
Now he's saying OBJ. Okay, let's find another knucklehead. And with OBJ, not only is he a knucklehead, but his dad is a complete idiot that can't shut his mouth anywhere he's ever been. So everybody's worried about getting Deion Sanders' kid. Holy crap. Go get OBJ's daddy, and we wish you had Deion Sanders. I mean, there's more to the player than just – and, I mean, let's be honest. These guys have been watched for a while. This, saying that they're better. I mean, we don't know what Roman Wilson is. He ain't really got a chance. But I'd rather give him a chance than I would bring in some old washed up has-been.
Do you think that with Roman Wilson, is it mental? Because I think he has the physical traits. He's not smaller than Calvin Austin. He's not slow. No. He's a 4.3 guy. I think he has the hands. Is it the mental aspect that's keeping him out? Is there an issue between him and Rodgers that maybe they're not just on the same page?
No, I do not know. I have no inside information. I'm watching him.
Yeah.
Sidelines. Watch him when he is in the game. I think it's a personality issue. And what I mean by that is some wide receivers are ultra confident. Like George Pickens, he can be double covered. And he would be jumping up and down. Why didn't you throw me the ball, right? Roman Wilson is very meek. He is not a overt personality, an enthusiastic personality. Throw me the ball. I'm open. You know what I mean? He's very like he needs positive affirmation from Rodgers. And I think in the preseason, Rodgers tried to, give him confidence and pump him up and say good things to him to the media, trying to help him here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that now the season started and Rodgers don't have time to babysit. So I think Roman Wilson either has to grow up quick in Pittsburgh or he'll be doing it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a big year for him. Last year, he missed out the entire season with an injury or with injuries. And then this year, he's not just getting on the field. I mean, I think, you look back at Calvin Austin, for instance, he got hurt his first year, came back. He didn't see a lot of playing time his second year, but it was a lot more than this,
Yeah.
It wasn't this bad. It wasn't like this. This is almost like he's in the doghouse for something to a certain extent, just a refusal of playing him and seeing what he has. And maybe perhaps he's just not in the right position or in the right spot. I mean, there's a lot of different things that could happen. But transitioning to the defense, it felt like the defense finally started. I know last week they had a lot of sacks. They had a lot of turnovers, a lot of fumbles and stuff like that against the Patriots. But it just seemed different. It seemed like this week they were more dominant, especially on third downs. And, and they end up getting Carson Wentz 6 times for 48 yards. They sacked him for 48 yards. It's impressive. They ended up a couple of interceptions, I believe, off of some tips, and really dominated the game. It almost came to a crashing halt in the second half there. How impressed were you with Peyton Wilson's ability to run down Jordan Addison?
It was the great chase down 2.0. We know DK Metcalf had the first one.
Yeah.
And we still talk about that one and see the replays every game he plays in. But I thought Peyton Wilson, I mean, that's your middle linebacker who runs a 4.3 something. And he chased down a, 4.4 something wide receiver in Addison. I think Addison might have timed 4 flat. But anyway, he's right in there. And Wilson run him down with not a great angle. I mean, and he was about 7 yards behind him at the start. So it was all hustle. And that's what I'm saying. That's all you can control is your effort every play. The only thing, not the result, not what your matchup is, just your effort. And to give that effort, he ran by a couple of his own guys, secondary guys, to get to him, who I didn't think was running as hard as Wilson at all. And they said he hit, I've seen one place said he hit like 21.5, and another said 22.3 miles an hour. But anyway, he was flying. He really was. And I was just so impressed because that really helped win that game because they took them at least another minute of game time to actually score, because it took them to fourth down to score. So huge play.
Yeah, it was a big play. It was well needed. I mean, I think because of that play, him stopping him there at the 1 yard line and everything that ensued after that, they ended up scoring a touchdown. But I think it was 3 minutes and 14 seconds when he makes the tackle, Peyton Wilson, and it's like 2 minutes and like 15 seconds when they finally score a touchdown. And so really drived off a lot of time off the play clock, which was invaluable, when it came to this game. And, to me, I thought he played impressively well. Keanu Benton, I thought he had himself a game. This was a game that he needed to have. Now, I know there was a lot of injuries for the Minnesota Vikings offensive line, but, this is what you expected him to do in that type of situation, is for him to have dominated that situation. And he did. Well needed. I know he has been dealing with some injury. Maybe perhaps he's finally overcoming those things, those bumps and bruises. At a good time now, especially with a bye week as well. But what did you think about the defensive line in whole, but especially Keanu Benton?
Well, I've been one of his biggest critics. And on any podcast, anywhere, anybody I've talked to, I'll be honest, I still think it's not his fault that they're playing him out of position.
Yeah.
I mean, if you watch the game, they had Harmon down inside multiple times. They had Black down inside. We didn't hardly even see Equale, who I like Equale.
Yeah.
All these guys can play around the nose. Benton cannot. If you watch those three guys and watch Benton goes back if you're single blocked. And you see Harmon and Black hold up against double teams. If you immediately go backwards, you're not playing the nose. So they played Benton out of position. But they dropped them guys in and tried to get more with the two edges in there as a 4. And they used Benton a lot more to the side with Harmon or Black inside with him. And I thought he was way more effective because he can penetrate. And he played actually decent on some of the running plays, but he actually was really disruptive against the pass rush. So I'm very proud of him. I'm happy for him because, hey, when you're bad, I'll say you're bad. When you do better, I'll say you did better. And that was his best game since his rookie year.
Yeah, it definitely was his best game. I think his best showing. It was well needed. Mr. Steelers fan Steeler fan comes in with, all of a sudden defensive line starts to improve the moment rookie Derek Harmon plays. Coincidence? Good point there. I think there's a little bit more to that. I think Cam Hayward was a little bit tired and sluggish early on in the season. I think it took him some time to get accustomed to game speed and getting game shape. I think he's played excellent even in this game as well. I thought his play was there. You also had some issues on the outside with Alex Highsmith going down. Sawyer, getting caught up. He's a rookie, and so, he had some growing pains as well. And I think he's starting to, show up as well. Herbig, he had some injury as well at the early part of the season. I didn't think he played the first 2 games, and he finally is starting to come alive and things of that nature. So there's some stuff there. I think also Cole Holcomb played a huge role, sitting down Peyton Wilson and maybe having him see from a different perspective. I think has helped him. So there's a lot of facts to that. I do think Derek Harmon plays a huge role. He's a large man in the middle of the field, and he was drafted in the first round for a reason. So 100% I agree that he played a huge role, but I think there's a lot to it as far as why the defense is playing better. What are your thoughts on we'll ask you about the 2 rookies, him and Wyatt Black?
Oh, the Steelers, we're going to remember this, that they got both of them guys the same year.
Yeah.
Just because people don't value the nose tackle like they used to. Even though Black is good enough to fill in, he could play in a 4-3 or a 3-4 because he can play some end. He's just a quality player. He might even be a better 4-3 defensive tackle, but he's going to do really good, I believe, for the Steelers because you can move him around. You can, like you say, nose or at end. Harmon is just, listen, Harmon's better than Hayward ever dreamed of being at the same point in their career. Hayward was younger when he come out of college. So it took him a little while to get, he wasn't a full-time starter to year 3. And, look who he had ahead of him, too.
I was going to say, he had some people ahead of him.
but I mean, Harmon holds the point of attack better than Hayward did as a rookie. Harmon is a grown man. and he's got grown man strength. And I love his effort. I love his intensity. He holds up against double teams. Most rookies get blown off double teams. You know what I'm saying? They use that first off season to get stronger and in even better physical condition. But Harmon, I think the dude's ready, and I think he's only going to improve as the year goes on. I got to mention, guys, I think Highsmith might get Wally pipped because Herbig is just lighting up the NFL right now. Herbig's acceleration is insane. It ain't even about the bend. When he comes around, he just accelerates so fast, and he's shorter and smaller, and he is so quick they can't get their hands on him. And he's eating these guys up. I can't think of that. The tackle.
Yeah, I was good. Dersher, something like that.
Darrisaw.
There you go. Yeah, Darrisaw.
He's a very good tackle. And Herbig embarrassed him on that one sack. He made him look bad. And Herbig's just killing guys. Herbig coming around that, I might have said Harmon, but Herbig is killing people coming around the edge there. And his pass rush, he might never set an edge as good as Highsmith or one of these bigger edge guys. But my gosh, he's too good to keep off the field.
Yeah.
So, that you might with him deals that you come back and, you're hanging by a thread keeping that starting position because Herbig is the real deal, fellas. And he's too good to keep off the field.
Yeah, I was going to say some of the guys on the defensive line got the opportunity to play against some backups. Nick Herbig didn't. He was playing up against a good, solid tackle, and he did what he did, and he caused big splash plays every time he's out there. It's a splash play, He's a steal. He's a steal, and I'm glad he's a Steeler. I think you're absolutely right. If Alex Highsmith can't stay on the field, he may end up losing significant amount of playing time once he is ready, because how can you take somebody off the field who's performing at the level that he is, causing splash play after splash play? And let's be real, that's what this defense has needed. This defense hasn't been able to, at least this year, they haven't been able to be dominant without the turnovers. It's been something that has been needed for them to be successful. It's not like they can just stop teams and hold teams to, passers for under 300 yards. I mean, even Carson Wentz threw for 350 yards in this game. And so, it's needed. The turnovers are needed. 5 turnovers last week, several turnovers this week. And given the end of score and the result, again, if the Steelers don't get one of those turnovers, there's a good chance that they don't win this game. So it's when you have a team that is so dependent on turnovers, you can't take your turnover machine off the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
I was, we don't see the same explosion and relentlessness out of Watt. I think it's just the double teams and everything started to wear him down. Now we have seen him move around, though.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
He's been looping more and then tried to come up, around and come up the middle and or spy the quarterback, or like one of the big runs that Wentz had for a first down. Watt tried to do he swam around there, looped around and tried to come up the middle. Nobody kept containment. Black was, being a rookie. He let Wentz get outside of him, and he run for the first down. But that's going to happen. But you can't just keep running straight into a double team. That's what Watt kept doing, coming from the same place every time. So I do like the fact that they are getting a little more creative there. But that explosiveness, that suddenness that I got used to seeing from Watt, now you see it from Herbig. There's one time on one of his big plays there recently, I thought it was Watt. And I said, oh, God, you see what he did? And I realized it was Herbig. Man, he is so explosive.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely is. And like I said, I'm excited he's a Steeler. I think he's going to be a dog, and I think he's going to create a lot of havoc. And if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But overall, great team win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were hitting on all cylinders. This wasn't a one-sided affair for the Steelers where either the offense was dragging the defense across the finish line or how so many oftentimes it's been the defense dragging the offense. It was complementary football for the first time in a long time. Outside of some questionable decisions by the head coach, I felt like this was a complete game and there was room for improvement. And given the fact that they have the bye week, can get healthied up, it could. I know I wasn't pleased with the early bye week, but it's probably couldn't come at a better time right now so that the players can get healthy and reflect on what it is that has been working and build on that. And so looking forward to it. What do I know it's a while now, we got a few more days, but any plans for this weekend now that there isn't the game?
We usually try to, if don't have any game and no responsibilities with that, I always watch the game somewhere.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times we'll go out of town or go back to visit. Used to visit my mother-in-law, but now it'd be my brother-in-law since she's passed and stuff like that. But and I'll try to catch a little football, just see what's happening too. Because I love NFL. I like to watch it, even if stores ain't playing. I watch a little bit tonight, and hopefully the Bengals are still losing. But
they're getting their butt kicked.
That makes me happy. And to see there's some disenfranchised fan base in Baltimore, and because you look at that team and you think Baltimore's the number one team in the division, and they look like a real contender, and but their coach makes some questionable decisions too. So I think that's a big issue for them. So I like it because I can't stand him.
Oh, I do too. I mean, when the rest of the AFC North is losing and the Pittsburgh Steelers are winning, it's amazing. We got a bye week, so we ain't gonna lose. It'll be great. Well, what do you got going on this week? The Steelers are off this week, but we aren't. What do you got going on?
Well, of course, Wednesday we'll have at 8 we'll have the Pump Your Brakes, and so I'm sure that you'll get a lot of insight and opinions from me and Tate and Big G, and we're no shrinking violence. We'll tell it like it is. We don't always agree, but we definitely share our opinions. So, but after that, we'll just have to see.
Well, there you go. Well, I'll be back on Saturday for the Steelers, State of the Steelers, and we'll talk about what important matchups to be on the lookout for, how it affects the Steelers, and so much more. So you don't want to miss it. If you're watching this on the YouTube side, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. With that being said, Shannon, take us out, my man.